Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 113th episode of House of Light, our first run on YouTube, the expansion to Book of Hours, playing as the archaeologist. And as from those of you keeping the context for Monday, I have made some time to record the remaining episodes. Now, I don't recall. I think we are clear in terms of the books. We should be getting ready for winter. I noticed that there's a couple of sort of dangling like notes that aren't really relevant, so I've got a few of the old curses still on the list. I think the films should be okay. But I'm just gonna let it run. I think in this case I had worked out a little bit in terms of how I wanted to level some of my skills up, but the best thing for me to do right now would be to advance time to let the evening cross over. Actually, I should take a minute here and pick a memory to survive. I don't think I can keep... No, sorry, we've got the impulse already. Okay, then yes, we will just let time go by. Alright, unwrap, unbox, unleash, and extra almonds. So if I recall correctly, that was because I'm going to use these for Denzel to open up some rooms. And there may be... I think there might actually be a bit of an argument for alternating between Denzel and Mr. Kill over winter, with maybe the exception that I did work out a little bit of a plan in terms of how I might want to level up some of these skills. So maybe this is the rough order in which I'll go. If we have snow, that might be a time for me to consider some of these other rooms. If we don't have snow, then I work on this pile of books here, particularly early on in the winter. And if we don't have any obvious reasons to read a book, then maybe that would be a time for me to use Denzel to open up a few of these other rooms. It's a rough estimate in terms of how I might want to spend the time. We'll obviously change that according to what seems interesting. And then, of course, if we have Numa, the greatest effort's going to be... That may not have been the smartest thing for me to do, because if it turns out to be Numa, we may occupy the slot. Alright, Orpiment Exultant. This is an Incastum Terminale, one of the great inks. Use it with your journal to record a history to fulfill your reason for coming to Hush House, if you so choose. Now, I don't recall... Okay, yeah, we kept them here, so... Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. And we have a storm, so this should... I believe this would be a point where I want to consider... well, wouldn't normally do this, but maybe we bring in Mrs. Kill for that one. In fact, a sneaky thing for me to try, even if we wound up with Numa... The Orchard Keeper gives us the same as... Sorry, I'm going to take a minute here. Okay, so if we have the 1 heart, then we'll have the 2 from core, so that's a total of 3. 1 from a tool, which is 4. 4 from the storm, which is 8. So I'll pay attention to that 12 as well. Okay, so between... excuse me. So we would need 4 from heart and food. And I think if I'm going to take a minute to bring up my food spreadsheet. I think the drawback here is that I may be able to get a pair of 2 hearts, but that would come at the cost of a ruby-wise ruin. So let's see what we're working with here. So yeah, tons of 2 heart. Everything from Yorkshire pudding to jugged pheasant will give me 2 heart. I'm curious if I can break that down into any drinks. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to guess here that probably the deciding factor would be the ruby-wise ruin. This is a tough call. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, as fun as it might be to bring in. So here's a rough reasoning that I have for this. If you're playing on your own and you're in this situation, you may make a different decision. So here's what I see. But sorry. So I know some people don't always like it when I go on about some of the choices here, but I think this is an interesting one in terms of breaking down some of the decisions that you make in the game in the face of the constraints. You know, I have a background in econ, so I almost always think of sort of trade-offs and things like that. And this is kind of a neat one that you can think of in terms of how the game sets up some of the choices that you make. So what I've got here, because we're about to transition into another season, the real choice here is, do I take advantage of the fact that I have this small window of access to the Orchard Keeper, somebody who I'm not going to be able to get for another year in game time? And do I get access to them through... okay, I actually just thought of another factor. So I just convinced myself otherwise, but I'll articulate the reasoning here. So going to the Sweet Bones, hiring the Orchard Keeper, I lose the money. But of course, one of the reasons why I keep churning out the money day over day is precisely to build a reserve, which I'll then sort of draw down in emergencies. So with that in mind, what that 12 pence gets me is basically an element of the soul, which, if you think of it, if money is the only consideration, it's actually a bad trade-off, because you can get an element of the soul back with 2 pence. But of course, the drawback there is that it's not just the 2 pence or tuppence, but it's the minute that you take to reload that and all of the other factors. So the big drawback to me here would be to say, it's like, okay, so what if that was the case, right? Why would I want to hire the Orchard Keeper when there's the possibility that I get Numa? And if I get Numa, I'm not going to want to use that core towards, towards building up the Orchard Keeper. I'm going to want to use the core to break down and rebuild my various elements of the soul. But further reflecting on it, you normally can't access someone during Numa. You can't normally get someone that you can talk with to build more memories. And so in that sense, the 12 pence actually makes a whole lot of sense. It's one that, so like, to me, it's, I either have the possibility of using this heart upgrade, this heart movement, which, again, just to be clear here, I've got the 12 winter. Okay, actually, I think I just convinced myself out of it again. Like, for 12 winter, I don't think it's actually that hard for me to work with. But yeah, on the other version of this, the other side of the coin is, I may actually give myself greater reach during Numa by being able to access something that gives me a lot of more memories than I would normally get, because those would require elements of the soul. And so while any individual Numa is a fairly low probability, the the chance or the cost, is kind of worth it just as that precaution. So I was originally going to say that I was somewhat compelled by the Numa argument because we're probably about due, but I'm just kind of reflecting. Maybe it's not that important for me to be able to build up Numa, and I think just because I'm going to have to give up a Ruby-wise Ruin, which is kind of precious for me right now, I'm maybe not so convinced that. Well, I do have more than one. I don't know though. It's weird, right? As long as I have the blue crown, I can really make more. So yeah, I'm gonna. I talked myself out of it again. Um, but that's kind of that's the thought that I had originally. Was going to be, it's like, okay, well, if I get Numa, I'm not really going to want to use the core to build up the Orchard Keeper. But even if I sort of remove the choice, there's still actually some value in having the Orchard Keeper, just because they'll probably be able to generate more than the 1 or 2 memories that I would give up to work with them. But I'm gonna play nice and just go with the way that the game was intended, or designed, not intended. All right, so we didn't get Numa anyway. What's happening in the world beyond Brandkrug? What visitors will the season bring? So we gotta wait on. I always like Settle. I think this always is the one that plays at the start of winter, but I always like Settle Old Soldier. Okay, so I do want to host a salon at some point. I didn't really think about who I would invite, although I think maybe we did finish The God in the Wood, so it may make some sense to invite Agdistis, Douglas, Eason, and Stanislav. Now, I should remember that I'm not going to. I need to talk to one of the members, and then have the rest sort of stay overnight. But let's build a salon around these characters and see maybe what the next step would be. Okay, so I also don't remember if I put Agdistis. Yeah, so he's Heart. Douglas is Lantern. Eason. I believe he is a split, so he... Oh, did I not write him down? So I think he's Moon and then Scale. And then Stanislav. And he's Heart as well. Now, I do have a choice. There's 5 positions, so I can add one more if I want. It might be interesting to invite Wakefield again. I think a few of the interactions with Wakefield have kind of already been used up, but okay. So that gives me an idea of the guest list. Let's maybe get to work on inviting these good people. And for Heart, we would do drums and dances, I guess. Well, maybe let's hold off on drums and dances in case I want to do something fancy. It's my other Heart, though. Strings and songs. Aha. Should remember what desk I'm using this at. I don't think weaving and not working will do the... Well, I mean, it gets the Eason. Oh, that's right. Ignisus wants Sky anyway, so... bells and braziers will do the trick. Okay. Now, before I do want to put some effort into cooking, but before I go too far on that, let's think about the books I want to read. So, Hill and Hollow. Now, for Hill and Hollow, we may have already hit the level that I wanted. Yeah, level 3, and I think we said that there was a range of 3 to 7. So we're going to skip over the Cucurbit Prisoner records. Now, Auroral Contemplations, I seem to remember... I think it was because it was like the first skill that I got, but I seem to remember I tend to put that one fairly high. So the question now will be, can I read the Book of Thrones without extra help? I suspect not, but let's give this a shot. So, Edge Desk, I think the Vagabond Desk, we will toss a metal in. Edict's Marshal's my best edge. So the best that I've got without any further intervention would be, I guess we'd want either the Saw or the Cucurbit Barrette or something. So we're short 3. So amusingly enough, even with a memory, we would still be one. We'd still be one short. But I can definitely risk that with the further attempts. So I'm fine leaving that aside. Now this will be an interesting one to trade off. I'm gonna do the numbers just to make sure that I get this right. So we've got the Mirror of Melisynth. So I'll just throw the Storm in for the sake of the argument, but I wouldn't actually want to use that here. Okay, so that gives me the 12, but in reality what I want to do is I'd take the Mazarine Fife. So that we really just need one winter or one sky memory, or alternatively we take our chances with the random numbers. The thing is that there's no reason why I should risk that. I just need to generate another memory. So I think these two are good for me to work on. The other thing is hang on, I should actually make sure that Sights and Sensations is even relevant here. So Sights and Sensations was... Yes, we can actually... So I was originally thinking that maybe I wanted to wait until after the Salon, but I can see some reasons why I'd want to push that ahead. Unfortunately, I think I used up my higher forge. Maybe not. So I can get to 9. But again, because we're at the point here now where I'm going to need to generate memories no matter what. So let's go for a contradiction and we'll get some kind of music memory. And I am slightly curious on one thing here. So I believe if I hire a fisherman, we'll get 2 moon and 1 sky. Yes. So my big decision as far as sky is concerned is there a good case for me to open up the Shrieking Gull Cloud? I realize there's been a lot of talk on this episode, but I'm trying to lay some foundations for the season. So if we bring in fish, so that's 1 sky, 4 for the storm. Oh, well, yeah, that gets really easy. So 3 from the fife. So we're at 8. Okay, so then we do 1 from Faust, which would be 9. So then we need to find 3 between food and drink. Well, okay, maybe I should actually make sure I have the... Okay, so blue crown for sure. So that brings us up to 11. And I can never remember the sky. I guess it's the pheasant that gives us some sky. Well, actually an egg would as well. I'm curious, does the egg count on its own, or do I need to... I would need to prepare it. Okay, but I think that's a room that we hadn't really planned on opening, so I still think it's worth it. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hire the fishermen. It is winter when the storms close the seas. The fishermen will offer their services for $1 a day. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to prepare the egg. Arab is my best option here. A dish with heart, scale, sky, and winter. So again, that's just to kind of get a toehold in the in more of the dawn period. Actually, I think this counts as outside, but sort of more of the lower levels. We will want to... So I don't want to give up my Arab as quickly as I did before. So I'm going to read a book with contradictions. I believe we are now on to the Ascendant again. And I needed some kind of sky. And that's pretty easy to get. It's any old, it's really any well, it doesn't have to be a Savage Hymn, but you might as well. So that'll get me the 2 books that I'm looking for. Now, I suppose one reasonable question here would be what are the next steps, because I'm going to be sitting around waiting for a minute. I think I'm going to want to make quite a bit of Solomon's preparation. And we do already have the blue crown, but I'm also going to want to make the blue crown tea. So I think it wouldn't hurt for me to throw my health at a couple gardening tasks. I also don't think it would hurt to take a chance on Crowcross Sands. And because I'm going to Crowcross Sands, I'm going to go to the moor as well. Now, normally I would hire someone like Denzel to generate memories, but that's going to be what I use the fisherman for. So I'm gonna write the invitations first. We will worry about making some dishes for the salon, but we definitely won't host it until tomorrow, and likely later. Okay, cool. So that wire is going to be so Denzel can open up more of the house. Oh, that's right. I also want to open those I want to open the containers. All right. So I know I've been talking a lot, but I think we're ready to make this happen. Fishermen's assistants. Fishermen in this part of the world have a reputation as smugglers, and worse than smugglers. Those days are past, mostly, and mostly they just catch pilchards now, but they still remember the words spoken in silence to the moon and the sea. So let's keep earning some money at the Sweet Bones. But for our fisherman friend here, let's start with the Faust. Together we'll be watchful, boosts lantern and sky. Alright, so Actistus is the first invitation. Now, I'm going to try and be a little clever with the invitations here. I'm going to wait until a little bit closer to the end of the day before inviting people. And then that should give me sort of an extended period where I can keep them overnight without draining down the impatience or whatever their duration. So it was Ecdysis, Douglas next. I'm just trying to do this in the order in which I wrote them down. Makes it a little easier to keep track of things. I'm curious what the next item is. It was fun that we got the Hobson event when Traveling at Night was announced. I don't think there've been any big Weather Factory announcements, so I suspect we will not have another on-brand one. Eason, heaven's sake, I don't even remember what Eason's. Oh, he's also hard. Okay, and one more. Well, one more for the purposes of the. I kind of think I have to use drums and dance, or. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go to a different desk. We won't lose it for that long, so I'll use drums and dances. I always feel a little wary whenever I put a big skill like that into something that doesn't require it, simply because I tend to then shake my fist. Oh, that's right. He also is Nectar. All right, my assistants and I are vigilant. So next up, we are going to. I guess we'll use the Mazarine Fife. I maybe should have used that earlier because we're going to want to use that with the book soon. We'll be 8 seconds short, but I'm not going to beat myself up too much about that. Now I just need to post it. And then Wakefield is the last of the invitations that I need to write, so we will get that one done rather in a sec. So Wakefield, again, we don't invite at the same time as the other guy. I mean, we can. There's just no real purpose. And any old winter will do. This one I feel a little funny about because I seem to remember that Zachary had a bunch of interactions already, but this is... It's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of who I'm inviting. Some of them are... I should have been opening these as well. Some of the people are kind of familiar guests. A couple of them we haven't invited as often, so it may or may not turn out in terms of new information. All right, so the invitations are prepared. At this point, I'm a little bit more focused on preparing the food. All right, boiled egg, neatly packaged nutrition, pale as a December dawn. So, can't be avoided anymore. Let's think about the salon. So, it seems to me like heart is the easiest one to prepare for. So let's start with winter, where I have fewer options. As much as I'd love to do the mushroom meringue, I think I might avoid. Actually, you know what? A pale marrow might be an idea here. So I'm just going to write my notes here. I'm not married to it, but it's a pretty versatile dish, so... So the pale marrow would be either a first course or a main course. So I think moon would be the next one. Now, because it's Eason, I really do like the idea of giving him some kind of fish. So Stargazy Pie would be an option for a moon main course. Now, the drawback on that one would be we would need dough. Poached mackerel, on the other hand, you just use the mackerel. And actually, you know what? I think that I'm kind of sold on that. So mackerel. And then lantern would be the last of the... Actually, let me just make sure that I've got the mackerel. So that's a first course, so I guess the pale marrow would have to be a main, although, you know, we'll always have one spare, so. All right, so lantern would be the last of the slightly tricky ones. So usually we go for orange jumble here. I don't think that'll be an exception. If I had plenty of golden marrows, I'd work with that, but I think we can just keep this simple. So we'll do... So this does open up other alternatives for me. If I wanted, I could maybe say, well, we can boil an egg, or when it comes to winter, I don't have to make a pale marrow. I could also go for roast potatoes. But what we'll do here is we'll just take a look at some of my heart options. So again, we've got a first course, we've got a main course, we've got a pudding. The only thing we don't have right now is a side dish. So pickled mackerel, pickled pilchards. Now I kind of like that in the sense of more fish dishes with Eason is kind of a fun idea. I think I did sort of a gamey oriented one before too, so there's something kind of fun about being able to do a more fish oriented one. I'm gonna sort by type, I think. But you know what? Roast potatoes are easier, so... Also gives me some versatility with the... in terms of the winter. So the last one is just sort of a spare heart. We can do pretty much anything. In fact, I think I could just serve plums as it is. But let's maybe try and be a little more inventive than that. I actually do like the idea. Let's try the pickled... I'll do the pickled pilchards. I'm going to need to make some alcohol, but that's not that hard to pull off. So I might be a little short on elements of the soul. But I kind of have enough to work with here. So because I don't have the booze, and I don't have... Ooh, dark marrow is an interesting idea, too. No, let's not mess with the plan. Okay, so I actually think because I have mackerel, maybe the easiest thing for me to do right now would be just to poach the mackerel. And I know that I'm going to need some kind of, like, Eigengrau would be a good thing to generate. So maybe I'll try doing that at the Nocturnary. And I prefer not to use the Tryst, but if I have to, I will. Okay, so that doesn't do the trick. I suppose Inks of Containment, maybe? No, but then okay, so 2 reasons. Yes, Eigengrau, but I don't have enough. Yeah, okay. I feel like I can do better in terms of elements of the soul that I'm giving up, though. Yeah, that feels a little better. Okay, so let's focus on the next books that I want to read. So, Unhatched Hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Meniscate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the men escaped from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Menascate as sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. And the Ascendant, the edgelong Dardesh, boasts of her victories over her brother enemy Tareg in the days of the Shadowless Empire. Sweeter than wine, than nectar is the blood of my brother. We have raised up armies one against another. We have sated the Blackbone with the sinking of our ships. Dardesh's boasting at length turns melancholy. An edgelong is half a dyad. She may not defeat her hated brother enemy without ending herself. She doesn't even want to, but she is aware, to her frustration, that she is a piece on the board, an axle on the ox cart, an essential part of the eternal engine of contention which the Lionsmith and Colonel use to sustain the world. So we've got the pieces in place to read the next books. Now, I'm kind of conscious of the fact that I'm a few minutes over, and the episodes have kind of been leaking into the 40-minute mark. So what I'll do here, I will wrap up for tonight. I realize it does feel a little silly to have a pending event coming up, but I don't know, that's the suspense that generates the engagement. But yeah, the overall plan, I'm going to try and read some books while the main focus is going to be on cooking. The big thing here is because we're at the beginning of the season, the only reason why I would want to level up a skill on the day that I read the book would be to take advantage of the memory that comes out. So as long as I use that memory for something, I won't really feel like it's a waste. And in the end, a single element of the soul isn't the end of the world. I've rushed the reading of these books, but the main focus really is getting the salon ready, because once we resolve the event, if we can, I'll be how do I put it? Once we resolve the event, I'm going to want to get the salon done, because that's going to give me some guidance in terms of the real lessons that I have to work with. So overall, in terms of priorities, getting the information that I'll be using over the course of the season, that's a little bit more important than getting sort of those early wins. Anyways, all of this will be resolved on Friday, tomorrow's episode. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.